Recording in progress.
Hello and welcome. It is March 2nd, 2022. I'm so glad you're here. It's starting to feel like spring here, although almost every day is the same in Santa Barbara, California. But there's certainly an element of bird song and buds flowering and a whole kind of new, fresh vibe, which is really, I find really welcoming, especially with the heaviness of our world today. And that's what I want to be talking to you about today, is how you can interact with the good news and the bad news, how you can be in control in some way, shape, or form of the way you respond to the world. And, you know, oftentimes I talk about meditation, and when you meet discomfort in meditation, whether your foot's falling asleep or you're feeling distracted or there's a loud noise out there or your pain in your body is searing or the mind is just going crazy. And I usually suggest that there are three ways that you can address this. You can either ignore it, whatever it may be, and just keep sticking to your practice. You can explore it and explore, the sounds, the sensations without a lot of judgment, but more like bearing witness to it, kind of watching it from a little bit of an objective viewpoint. And then you can also move. You can move your attention, you can move your body, you can take some deeper breaths. So in any difficult situation in meditation, you always have one of those three choices. You can ignore it, explore it, or move. And all of those choices are perfect sometimes. And doesn't mean that you're not a good meditator if you ignore a particular sound or sensation. It doesn't mean you're a great meditator if you're exploring it. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you if you ignore it or, even move. So it's really important to be kind to yourself in meditation. But I want to talk about this when it comes to how you're interacting with the world when you're not meditating. Meditation, I believe, helps you to become ridiculously in charge of your attention. That's a quote from some CEO of a company who hired me, who said, "Hey, can you help all of us become in charge of our attention?" And I said, well, I can try. And so that's what I want to talk a little bit with you today about, is starting to pay attention to your attention and pay attention to the rider that rides along with your attention. And usually those riders are things like judgments or criticisms or praise or blame. So I'm going to invite you right now to just do a little practice with me. And we are really sometimes at the mercy of the environment around us, what information is coming in. But I also think it's really important to take a look at what information is coming out of you, what intention, what energy, what attitudes. So I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. I'm just going to read slowly a list of people or things or places. And as I do that, begin to notice what your mind does with each of these, okay? Now, there's no good or bad here. This is simply watching and paying attention, like you might watch a dog chase a stick at the beach. You're just going to watch what's happening. So with your eyes closed or softly gazing downwards, I'm going to suggest that you just watch what your mind does with words like angels, love, sunshine, pollution, starlight, friendship, refugee, pandemic, peace, Ukraine, harmony, hate, lovable, flowers. Now I invite you to open your eyes and ask yourself, did you notice that the mind just moves immediately to maybe a visual or a judgment or a story, even though all I read was a word? So this is nothing other than you paying attention to your attention, your meta attention. What happens when a stimulus comes in of a word? Does it start a whole story? Do you have a feeling after the word comes in, or a thought? And then do you have some judgments? So today I want to talk about the power of your attention and what happens when you're not in control of it. A good friend of mine, Byron Katie, talked about the way of creation. There's a stimulus, like the word I read. The stimulus creates a thought, good, bad, right, wrong. That thought creates a feeling, disgust, pleasure, pain, happiness. That feeling creates an action, whatever that may be. You watch TV more or you engage in that activity more. And that action creates the world that we have. But it all starts with you meeting a stimulus. Now, sometimes this is so unconscious and sometimes it's really out of our control, but I just wanted to show you how important it can be to pay attention to your judgments and your attitudes. I'm going to share my screen here if I can and show you a little experiment by a man named Dr. Emoto. I don't know if you've heard of him. He was a Japanese doctor. Some people say he was pseudoscientist, but he spent a lot of time putting attention in various ways on bodies of water. And then he would take a droplet of that water, freeze it, and then look at it. What you see here are some of the responses that water has towards thoughts. Now, whether you think of a thought, a prayer, a judgment, a blessing, all of these are directed outward toward this body of water, different bodies for different experiments. So look at how coherent thank you and wisdom, truth and eternal, an angel and I love you, and peace look like, right? They are very coherent, like the perfect snowflake, really, and each one is unique. But if you look at some of the discordance or the lack of harmony in you fool, or you make me sick, or the word evil, or even what pollution does to water. Then, of course, look at this last one here, polluted water after prayer. You can see, once again, it's back to coherence. Now, we're just talking about an experiment here. But I know that when you hear about good news or bad news, the mind quickly jumps to a judgment for most of us, instead of that whole story of, well, maybe it's true, or maybe it's not true. The only thing I can be in charge of right now is my response to it. So when you start to watch your mind, you can watch how quickly it jumps from good, bad, right, wrong. And as you start to watch it, you can start to question it. Is it true? Can I absolutely know it's true? Can I relieve myself from the judgments that I'm making about others? Because when you walk into a room and you begin to judge, you have a direct effect on everyone there. Or if you watch something on television or listen to a radio or podcast, your judgments have an effect on that which is around you, whether it's water or a person or a plant. In fact, there was I wrote the book, The Power of Attention, and in it, I talk a little bit about the Baxter effect. In the early 60s, there was a man Cleve Baxter, who used to experiment with plants with a very similar attitude, like, I love you, I want to feed you, or I'm going to burn you up with this lighter. And the plants would respond to the various thoughts that this man had, whether he was in proximity or if he was down the street at a pub, to the way that the plant behaved, thrived, or withered and died. So when we start to notice that we have a ripple effect with how we see the world and how we interact with the world, even though we may all agree that this person is evil or this person is not evil or this is right or this is wrong, we actually have that discordant effect when we start to judge and hate and name call. So I wanted to share that with you today because I know many of us want to be a little bit more in charge of our attention and live a more, I want to use the word holy, but maybe a more evolved life. So today we're going to spend a little time meditating and paying attention to the movement of the mind. We will also do a little bit of self-inquiry and a little breath awareness. I like to start every meditation with mindfulness. And as you know, mindfulness means paying attention to what you're doing while you're doing it, without judgment, but in fact with acceptance and curiosity. So I like to go over the 5 essentials real quick. The first essential is it's okay to have thoughts in the middle of the practice. Your mind will get distracted. Your mind is a storyteller. It is charming and will try and get you to stop meditating. So I invite you every time you notice your mind traveling is to come back to the practice again and again, all the while being kind to yourself. That's another essential. Do not spend any of our time together judging yourself or beating yourself up. It does not help you in any way. Third, don't try to have a certain experience other than the one you're having. Listen, any experience you have in meditation is going to be beneficial, whether you think it's pleasurable or not. Fourth, let go of any expectations you might have. You might have been meditating with me for the last 2 years or 3 years, and every meditation, as you know, is different. So let's not judge the meditation by the experiences that you're having in the practice. And lastly, let's stick with the practice. We'll be meditating for about 20 minutes. And afterwards, I'm going to invite you to sit for a little bit after the meditation with your eyes closed, what I call the integration period. The integration period is that time in between being in meditation and moving into the waking state. That time in between are the greatest times for transitions and mindfulness and moving more deliberately, making better choices. So let's get comfortable. Find a place where you can sit comfortably and close your eyes if you're comfortable doing that. Some people like to gaze softly towards the ground or toward your hands, and you can do that as well. And begin to tune in to your intention for being here today. Whether it's an intention for simply today or for your entire commitment to your practice. What is it that you hope to gain or maintain? And let the awareness of your intention move into your consciousness, and maybe say that intention silently to yourself a few times. And letting that intention fade as you now bring your awareness to your senses. Notice the sounds around you. Notice how some sounds arise from the silence and return to the silence. Notice how some sounds are constant. Begin to tune into the sound of the sounds rather than your judgment about it, or identifying the source of the sound. Welcoming everything and resisting nothing. And noticing when the mind wants to drift into a story or a judgment or a preference, and simply come back to the sound itself. Now bring your attention to what you're feeling. Let's start with your emotions. What emotions do you have right now, if any? Maybe there's just a vague residue or an entire landscape of emotion. Simply observe without judgment, without a story. With that same witnessing awareness, begin to notice how you're feeling physically. What sensations are present? As you scan your body, do so with a loving, welcoming awareness, inviting each area to soften. You might feel some air on your skin, or where your feet are resting on the ground. Softening your eyes and your face. Lowering your shoulders. Letting your arms hang comfortably. Relaxing your belly, your hips. Letting go of any need to brace yourself against anything. Tune in now to the stillness that's present right here. And now begin to tune into whatever subtle movements you experience. Perhaps you feel a gentle swaying or rocking. Perhaps you feel your heartbeat. Perhaps you feel the way your body responds to the breath moving in and out. And bringing your awareness now to the breath, to the sensation of the air moving into your lungs, and how the air empties from your lungs, and the way the body responds to the filling and emptying. When the mind drifts away to a story or another time or place, bring your attention right back here, right back to the sensation of breathing. Each breath is an anchor to this moment. Being aware of the inhale and the exhale. And if you find your mind especially busy, simply invite the word in on the inhale and out as you exhale. Noticing the space between the in and the out, the pause as the breath turns around. We'll sit like this for another minute or so. I'll keep track of the time. And bringing your attention now to the gentle rise and fall of your chest. Just behind the breastbone, you can begin to focus on the heart space. If you like, you can bring your hand to it, resting your hand on your chest. Or simply see or feel or imagine a light, a star, some warmth. As you enliven the heart center with your awareness. As you sit here, let's begin to offer loving kindness, words of solace, blessings to all beings everywhere, whoever arises in the screen of your mind's eye. You can begin to offer them these phrases or some of your own. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be free from suffering. As you begin to widen that circle of compassion, invite into it people that you may have judged recently for their actions. Maybe you feel justified in excluding them from your loving kindness. Invite them in and notice what happens, just like those ice crystals. Notice what happens when you offer these phrases. May you be free from suffering. May you be peaceful. May you know that you are loved. Your attention is like the wind which carries the intention beyond time and space. Let's continue this practice, whether you're offering these blessings to world leaders, or people in your community you don't always agree with, people in your family that you might see things differently from. May you be free from suffering. May you be peaceful. May you know that you are loved. This may or may not be easy for you. It's an experiment, inviting people you have judgments about into the fold of loving kindness. It's your ability to see the humanity in people that are in pain or who are behaving in a challenging way. And let's bring the same loving kindness to you. As I say these phrases, I invite you to repeat them, as you know what happens with good thoughts. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be free from suffering. May I be peaceful. May I be safe. May I know that I am loved. Continuing to repeat whatever phrase feels most comfortable for you. And if an opposing thought arises, simply ask yourself, who would I be without that thought? Who would I be without that thought? I'm going to sound the bell now. And as I do, I invite you to keep your eyes closed. Resting in the stillness. Resting in the equanimity. Resting in the peacefulness. You might begin to deepen your breath a little bit. Keeping your eyes closed as long as you like. Invite some movement, maybe a shoulder roll or neck roll, or stretch into the space around you. And when you feel like you'd like to open your eyes, I invite you to do that. There's no rush. I'm reminded of the couple of lines from Rumi's poem from memory, so forgive me if it's wrong. But outside of right doing and wrong doing, there's a field and I will meet you there. And when we refrain from judgment, or at least take that space between stimulus and response to choose something a little more nourishing, we can make a huge difference in the world we live in. Because peace is my responsibility and it's yours too. So thank you for practicing with me today. Thanks for being here. Hope you're doing all right. Starting to notice what you put your attention on and how it makes you feel, and then what kind of vibe you're adding to that as it ripples through the world. We have a choice because you're the only one who can control your attention. So I'm going to stop recording now. Invite you to stick around if you'd like to ask some questions or share your experience.